history. And when oppression, when centralized systems come into full control, hell itself is released on the surface of this globe. We have a lot of new developments and angles and information concerning the tragic shooting Wednesday night in South Carolina and the deranged shooter who has now reportedly admitted that he did it and said that he wanted to start a race war. Well, that's not hard to figure out. So did Charlie Manson. And then you've got the Turner Diaries written by Pierce. And then you've got all the connections between those organizations and the globalists and the federal government. And you've got the Democratic Party with its history of being the Ku Klux Klan. They are now attempting to create basically balkanization, chaos here in the United States. They're clearly pushing a racial conflagration in this country to divert off of the fact that Europe is in turmoil. There are bank runs taking place. There are open discussions of freezing bank accounts and the EU falling apart. Ron Paul is in CNBC warning that the stock market day of reckoning is near. The IMF trained Greek journalist in Washington to spin stories in favor of more bailouts to the banks. Elite financier George Soros warns of World War III again and says it's not an exaggeration. Meanwhile, the United States is building anti-cruise missile bases on the east and west coast, preparing for submarine-launched cruise missile attacks. That's from Defense One. And it gets worse. We talked about this last week. Kurt Nimmo wrote about it, that the House Republican leadership was planning to try to pass fast track, giving the president dictatorial power to sign us on to anything he wants for 4 years, not just this president, but the next. Well, while we were busy wringing our hands over the 9 dead in Charleston, they passed fast track that we defeated Friday in the House. Now, it's got to go back to the Senate. But then if it passes there where it's already passed before, it's a done deal. This is a travesty. And I was saying yesterday, watch, they're going to try to ram this through while Obama's up there demonizing the Second Amendment because another drugged up whack job probably got wound up by somebody, undoubtedly, went in and killed 9 people. Doesn't matter if 14 black people die a week on average in Chicago. Look it up. 93% of them killed by other blacks. Doesn't matter if you've got similar numbers in D.C. and other areas. These 9 will now be the martyrs and the collective white guilt to do the right thing and turn our guns in and accept open borders and just accept whatever we're told. Accept Obamacare or we're racist. And Salon, the White House front group, White House manipulated, White House controlled. It's totally clear when we look at groups like Media Matters, and then Salon just parrots whatever they say. White America must answer for the Charleston church massacre. White America. It doesn't matter if blacks commit 8 times more crimes against whites per capita in the FBI's own numbers. It doesn't matter if there is a criminal culture that is in a minority of blacks, but still substantive, that is seen as cool. And to go physically attack or shoot or kill a white person or a Hispanic or an Asian, I mean, it's pushed in black culture, even by religious leaders, to attack Asians. Asians are the most hated, I guess, on that totem pole. And that supposedly is acceptable. It's not acceptable when the dirtbag went into the black church and shot 9 people. And it's not acceptable when a black dirtbag goes out and shoots some white people. But the media calls it the knockout game. It's just a game when you go out and find an old white person and walk up and sucker punch him, and then their head hits the concrete and their head busts open and they die. It's kind of cute and funny because you know the cracker deserved it. Some cracker probably poorer than you are. And we can't deport the 36,000 illegals they just released with felony backgrounds who mainly feed on Hispanics, because that would be racist. You're an arson, you're a rapist, you're a hit and run. You've been in 2, 3, 4 times, it's okay. And by the way, right now they're trying to ram through total blanket amnesty. And Obama's giving out tips on how to get worker visas. And they're advertising on CNN, hey, China, come here, have your babies, it's all free. To where now Chinese are the biggest immigrants to the U.S., and almost all these new immigrants are not skilled laborers. They are welfare tourists coming here to milk the joke of a system we've got. And why not? It's advertised. You get a plane ticket here, we'll give you a visa, get on a plane, come here, your baby, everything's free, then that baby's a citizen, you get full welfare, you get to stay. Am I against Chinese people? No. Am I against Mexicans? No. Am I against all the Eastern Europeans moving in here to also milk the welfare? No. Am I against the Africans coming in here to milk the welfare? No. But then I see African immigrants and others on Facebook and Twitter and InfoWars today saying, I'm an African immigrant, and I'm telling you, whites are the problem. You all need to be killed. Because racism is sold as cool by the Democratic Party and other socialist parties around the world as long as it's against white people. Because white people were the predominant middle class and were the West, so they've got to be bullied into turning power over to the globalists who were just the dominant white people. Whether they be Jewish or German or Scotch or English or Dutch, that's who's dominant. And they sit there playing us all off against each other while they live in armored compounds or in island redoubts, keeps, castles, fortresses. And now a friend of accused South Carolina shooter claims he wanted to start a race war. We've got that clip coming up after the break. I'm telling you, this is a Charlie Manson deal. I said that yesterday. This is a Charlie Manson start a race war, period. This is meant to start a race war. And now you know that's what happened. Whether he's a cutout, whether he's drugged up, undoubtedly someone was handling him, someone was preparing him, someone was winding him up. And I said yesterday, A, trying to start a race war, and B, if he's on amnesics, then it goes from maybe it's a false flag to we got to really investigate it now. It could be. And sure enough, the story's been top linked on Drudge since yesterday. It's gone viral. All we did was go to the police statements. No one else had covered it, where they admitted he was on the amnesic Schedule 3 narcotic prescribed by a doctor. And he'd been in and out of the system for years. And this drug causes people to be horribly aggressive, to become violent, to commit suicide. Suboxone. And I've talked to 2 people in my office who've had family, both of which died recently. Well, Joe Jennings said he'd talk about it. His dad was on it. And one other person told me about it, but didn't want me to say their name. And it made their family member have a lot of problems. I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, Joe, you can pop in if you feel like it later and talk about it. You know, your father recently died, so it's hard for you to talk about. But this is the whacked out stuff they've got people on. And you can argue, well, the drug didn't do it. They were already whacked out. Whatever. You put a crazy person on a hardcore drug, unless it's lithium, they're going to end up whacking out. I mean, every time I hear about somebody randomly killing their kids or randomly shooting a cop, every time they're on a cocktail of this crap. Every time. Every mass shooting, every one of them. Harris and Klebold and Kip Kinkle and the cutout shooter from Sandy Hook. Just every time. It says in the insert, you may become violent, smashing things, and threatening. Go read it for yourself. And then here's the other news on that front. Salon, white America must answer for the Charleston church massacre. See, it's a collective guilt. That's a telltale sign of an authoritarian regime when your neighbor does something wrong, so you get punished too. Or a fascist regime, or a communist regime, anything totalitarian. The Nazis in occupied Poland and Ukraine and Russia, if a soldier got shot by a sniper in the town, they would kill 10 people, randomly. If an SS officer got killed, they'd kill 100 or 1,000. And that's how this works. Oh, someone else did something bad with a gun, you're to blame. And then they get on the news and Obama goes, there's an epidemic, it's getting worse, nobody else has these problems. Crime using guns is down 61% according to Professor Lott and his statistics. We had a statistician do it, 51% since 92. He's more prestigious, one of the top living statisticians. But whatever, it's down 50+% because we're an armed camp and criminals are scared. Where do they go, though? A victim disarmament zone like a church. Because they're cowards. They don't come here. I mean, the InfoWars studios, I've got 2556 right here, a 500 Smith. Stuff's getting weird. Thanks for joining us on this Friday edition. Alex Jones here live. I'll be live this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Central. If you're watching us on TV, I have two HD firearms, two head-down firearms, both 5.56 in front of me. To just illustrate, these guns aren't going to shoot anybody. These rifles, these weapons, aren't going to attack anybody by themselves. And I know that's an idiotically obvious thing to say, but look at the logic of the people demonizing gun owners. They're now saying gun ownership is racist. No, disarming black people in the South at the end of the Civil War, that was racist. The first gun laws were racist. Saying the NRA was a racist organization is, again, upside down. It's a total fraud. I'm not even going to get into the NRA's history. But everybody who's informed knows it was founded to arm blacks to fight the Ku Klux Klan. Again, and the party of the Ku Klux Klan, the Democrats, won our guns. And I'm not saying the Republicans are much better. The Republican Tea Party's great. That's why $50 million has been given the last year by the Republican leadership and their donors to destroy the Tea Party, teaming up with the Democrats in closed-door meetings. Because the Tea Party doesn't want the TPP. Tea Party doesn't want to turn over the guns. Tea Party doesn't want to make the president a dictator who serves foreign interests. But we have to get that logic out to people and point out, hey, actual crime with guns is way down. Most black people are killed by other black people. And the media doesn't personalize other deaths. They've chosen to personalize this because Juneteenth's coming up, because the NAACP convention's coming up, and it's going to be all about galvanizing the black community to demand gun restrictions in America to give Obama cover, like he did with his executive actions on amnesty. Hey, Congress wouldn't pass it? I changed the law. We have an intro that has those quotes. Maybe we should play it next segment. He said, I changed the law with actions I just took. And he says, I'm getting ready with gun control. Just give me time. I've got more than 18 executive actions I'm getting ready to take. So they just tried to ban semi-autos. They just tried to shut down gun shows. They just tried all this. They're coming. Don't think just because we've had a couple victories against the gun grabbers that the war has been won. I told you last Friday when we shot down the TPP, they're going to be back next Thursday. And I was so busy trying to explain what was happening to the Second Amendment with this tragic shooting with this dirtbag. Or he may be a victim. Though now I see him, he looks totally arrogant and whacked out. But drugs can do that to people as well. And they can charge them up. Charlton pastor fears riots after church shooting. But then when Matt Drudge talks about how race war is being pushed, the media comes out and demonizes him, saying that he's pushing race war. That article is up on Infowars.com. Progressive tweets, Drudge trying to start race war. No, we and Drudge and anyone sensible is exposing the push to create racial division and to rub salt in the wounds and to start a war against the police,